Grizzly Risley here, reporting to you live about 5.5 Day 1, Solving Absolute Value Equations. The absolute value definition, it is the distance between a number and 0 on a number line. And the symbol that we use to talk about absolute value are two parallel bars with the number in the middle. That means absolute value. Okay, so here's what it means. Let's say we asked you guys for absolute value of -2. It wants to know what number or how far is -2 away from 0 on the number line. Okay, so here's 0. And here is -2. It's saying distance. How far is -2 from 0? And you would say, oh, 2 spots. Okay, so the answer is 2. It's just how far is it? Distance is always positive. We should probably write that down. Distance is always positive. So when it's an absolute value problem, your answer will always be positive. Okay, so number 2, how far is 3 away from 0 on the number line? Okay, so 3 is right here. How many units away from 0 is it? 1, 2, 3. So super easy. The answer is 3. When there's more than one number going on inside, you do that first. Okay, so this one, 2 minus 3 is -1. So now it's saying, what's the absolute value of -1? How far is -1 away from 0 on the number line? Well, -1 would be right here. It would be 1 unit away, so the answer is 1. Okay, so as you notice, basically it's just the answer of this in its positive form. So if it's -2, it's +2. If it's 3, it's +3. If it's -1, it's +1. It's just always positive. And then let's try one where you guys have to actually plug it in. So number 6, let's plug in x equals -4. Okay, so hopefully you guys are getting the idea here. What is the absolute value of -4? How far is -4 away from 0 on the number line? And hopefully you guys say the answer is +4, right? It's just always positive. So the absolute value of -4 is 4, and then we just need to subtract 5. So what is 4 minus 5? That is -1. Okay, and then now we're on to solving absolute value equations. So an absolute value an equation, it's an equation involving absolute value bars. So absolute value bars. Now, every absolute value equation has 2 answers, and let me show you why. So this, when you're solving an equation now, this is different. When you're solving an equation, it's saying, hey, what number on the number line is 4 units away from 0? So if you guys drew a number line, what number is 4 units away? Wouldn't you say 4? Obviously. Okay, 4 is 4 units away. But there's another number that's 4 units away from 0. And that would be the negative version, -4. So every absolute value equation has 2 answers, the positive and the negative, because they're both 4 units away from 0. All right, so let's try a couple. So number 1, absolute value of x is 7. It's really saying what 2 numbers are 7 units away from 0. And hopefully you guys would say 7 and -7. Okay, now number 2 is a little different. This one's saying what 2 numbers are 7 units away, or I'm sorry, 9 units away from 7. So here's what we have to do for these. When you guys have 2 absolute value bars, you need to write 2 equations. Okay, the first one's going to be r minus 7 equals +9. And the next one's going to be r minus 7 equals -9. So that takes into account 9 units to the right and 9 units to the left. I mean, that's pretty much what we did here. 4 and -4. This one was 7 and -7. This one we got to do 9 and negative 9. And now this one you actually have to solve. So we're going to draw our bar. We're going to add 7 to get r equals 16. And we're going to add 7 to get r equals negative 2. So here's your two answers, 16 and negative 2. So when there's no other number inside, it's just the positive and negative version of this number. When there is a number on the inside, you actually are going to get two different answers. All right, let's try two more on the back. Okay, so number 3 is just like, let's try number 4. Okay, another big rule is you cannot distribute into an absolute value. No distributing. So what we have to do first is isolate. We need to isolate the absolute value bars. Okay, so let's draw our wall. Let's isolate first. If you guys were to isolate, you would add 5 first. Okay, and then we get 3, absolute value of 2x minus 7 equals 9. Okay, we're still not isolated. We need to divide by 3 to totally isolate. So it's going to be absolute value 2x minus 7, absolute value equals 3. Now that we're isolated, so isolate means you need the bars to be alone. Now that we're isolated, we're going to set up our two equations. So one of them is going to be 2x minus 7 equals positive 3. And the other one's going to be 2x minus 7 equals negative 3. There's always two answers, 3 to the right and 3 to the left. And then you guys are going to solve them both by drawing a wall. And we're going to add 7 to both sides and get 2x equals 10. Divide by 2 to both sides. So one answer is 5. And then add 7 to both sides. We get 2x equals 4. Divide by 2 to both sides, and we get x equals 2. So here are your two answers. Okay, but before you set up your two equations, you have to get it isolated. So if anybody would like to stop here, you can. But I'm going to do a couple more for anybody who would like a little more practice. Okay, so on to number 5. Before we set up our two equations, we need to isolate. So if you're trying to get this alone, I'm going to draw the wall, and we're going to add 4 to both sides. You have to do that first. So it's absolute value x plus 3 equals 3. Okay, now that we're isolated, we need to get two numbers that are 3 to the left and 3 to the right. So we need to set up two equations. One of them is going to be x plus 3 equals positive 3, and the other one's going to be x plus 3 equals negative 3. So your two equations are going to be the positive and negative version of the number on the right-hand side. And then the solving's really easy. Draw the wall, minus 3, you get x equals 0. Minus 3, you get x equals negative 6. So those are your two answers. And then for anybody still watching, let's do number 6 as well. You might want to pause it first and try it. Okay, so before we set up our two equations, we need to isolate. So in order to isolate the absolute value, I hope you guys would agree that we need to divide both sides by negative 3, because you cannot distribute into an absolute value. These cancel. We get absolute value 4x plus 3 equals 3. Okay, we are isolated. So now we're going to set up our two equations. One of them is going to be positive 3, one of them is going to be negative 3. So we got 4x plus 3 equals positive 3, and we got 4x plus 3 equals negative 3. But you can only do that once you're isolated. And then we're going to draw the wall, and solve. So minus 3, you get 4x equals 0. Divide by 4, x equals 0. That's the first one. And then minus 3, you get 4x equals negative 6. Divide by 4, And if you reduce negative 6/4, you get negative 3/2. And those are your two answers. Okay, so a little recap for anybody still watching. When you solve, you isolate and then set up two equations, one equal to the positive version of this number and one equal to the negative version of this number. Okay, thank you for watching.